Dr. J, and the next stars of the future, and he really set out a good example and of how to act as a human and a person as well as the player that he was in the court. I mean, this is the guy that is arguably, well, not arguably, the greatest winner in all of team sports. This guy has won 11 championships, and he only played 13 years. He's won 11 championships and one as a player coach, as you mentioned, and also being the first black um, coach in the NBA. I mean, this guy, his resume is unmatched. So I want to say rest in peace to Bill Russell, and then of course Vince Scully, the legendary voice of the Dodgers, and like you mentioned, other franchises as well.
Yeah, Vince Scully was, some people are just iconic with broadcast, and every time I think about it, it's like, okay, Vince Scully. I mean, he's put on the Dodgers. They put him on the Mount Rushmore for the Dodgers with Jackie Robinson and all the greats with the Dodgers to put somebody who broadcast. Going on over here to my man Isaiah, remembering Vince Scully and Bill Russell, who passed away.
Yeah, I definitely gotta remember Bill Russell right now, just because of an inspiration that he is to not only all the generations of athletes, black athletes especially that came after him, but also just I never got the chance to see him play in person or anything, or I never saw him play. Obviously that's way out of my generation, but you know when I would watch the games today, I would always see him there. He was always there. At all the games, it was always inspiring to see him there at the game, still connected to the game, always smiling. It was you could see just the type of man he was and what he represented just by how much he cared for the game. And that to me is special. Even you know for never having seen him play, I can see the impact that he had on the league and on the players and everyone around him. And I think that's the type of person that when they leave the world, that the sports world really feels that it changes in a way that it can never really be the same. And the same with Vince Scully also, somebody who's an iconic voice for so long. That's also, inspiration to me as a young broadcaster, young journalist, someone, seeing someone that can, make an impact on a community for so long. And that's something that I would aspire to be also. And, both of these men were inspiring and very impactful in their own rights to the world of sports. And yeah, we definitely got to honor them.
Yeah, so from all of us here at RSG, rest in power, Vince Scully and Bill Russell. Your impact will be going, well beyond the world of sports. Obviously, by you both being honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom for the work you did, not only with the world of sports but beyond the world of sports. So, thank you both for your words of wisdom and sharing your thoughts. I love these kind of generational conversations. All right. We talk about our back page, and this is like, in between sports, we have in between shows, we have text messages, folks are doing different stuff, folks are posting. When you drive your car down the highway now, like with the old, like the car play, like you see something come for your text, you can press it, and then, Siri or somebody says something to you, tell you what's going on. And these cats always got some link in there, and I'm like, I gotta get to my destination. They're gonna have me distracted. So I'm always interested in what they're gonna say when we get to this point, because I know they're both thinking about a whole bunch of stuff. Then I'm trying to figure out what they're gonna end up picking. So Darnell, we're gonna start with you. What's on your back page?
My back page is Ypsilanti's own Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown signed his contract with the Toronto Raptors, and this is a very on-brand move for the Toronto Raptors because if you know anything about the Raptors, they love wings. They don't like guards. Like, they only got like one or two guards. They don't really like bigs, but they're in this new futuristic wave where they want to play like all 5, 6'8", 6'9" guys. And they got another one from Michigan State and Gabe Brown. He's an athletic wing, can play some defense, can shoot the ball. I mean, I think I think he'll carve out a role on that Toronto team in time. It might not be this year, but Toronto is one of the organizations, kind of like the Spurs was in the past, 10, 15 years ago, where they have a really good developmental system. They have had a lot of guys that went down to the G League, and you look back in a couple of years, and now they're contributing on the playoff team. And I think that is something that can definitely be in order for Gabe. So I'm excited to see how this plays out.
All right, all right. You getting one of your own out there. All right, Isaiah, who what you got on your back page?
Yeah, I just wanted to say about the Gabe Brown thing. I'm very happy that Gabe is he got signed to a contract with Toronto. Fellow Michigan State, fellow Michigan State guy, but also we grew up in the same area. He's from Belleville. I'm from Ypsilanti, and we also played on the same AAU basketball team in ninth grade. So I'm really happy for him. I'm happy that he's getting this chance, and I think he will carve out a role. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
So I
But
expect
on
one of
my
y'all two to get it. I expect one of y'all two to get him on the show. So we got to talk about that later.
yeah,
Yeah, I hope with his brother from time to time that Lifetime.
Okay.
yeah,
You got to smooth in.
yeah, it's good to see the hometown guy, up in the league. I'm really happy for him. But on my back page, it's about the whole Deshaun Watson situation going on. Um, he's had a investigation, an ongoing investigation of sexual misconduct with several women. Um, and the Browns, I believe they sentenced, well, they gave him a 6-game suspension. But the NFL is now looking to appeal that suspension and possibly give him a even harsher and longer suspension. But really, I just want to see him, see people held accountable, for this. Um, you're starting to see a pattern of this behavior, and I just want to kind of see the NFL and everyone else handle it the right way. Uh, it is kind of really disturbing, all this behavior and all that. But I just want to see that this is handled the right way by the NFL. We'll see what's going to happen. It's probably going to turn into an even longer process for this whole thing to be settled. When we thought, it looked like it was going to be settled a few days ago, but now with this appeal happening, it could be a lot longer of a process. And then also, you got to think about what's going to happen with his career now. He didn't. He has that huge contract, but he didn't play in 2021 season, and now you got to wonder about what's going to happen for this season. So I think there's still a lot of questions to be answered.
And I mean, this is for the listeners who may not follow directly. So part with this new process, which was collectively bargained, is that it goes to a retired judge who's reviewing all the information, but the review is based on what the collectively bargained policy. So we have to separate the lens that they're looking at from kind of, but it also means they got some flexibility. So they're not. It's not like they're taking it through the court system. The degrees in which they have to decide whether or not you violate it or not. That bar is very low, and so the justice looked at this and decided on this games, which surprised a lot of people because I think most people were thinking it was going to be at least in the 8 game range, to a year or more. And so the second part of the process is it can go to Roger Goodell or he can send it to an arbitrator. Now, there's been people who have said there's been votes against Roger making a decision or not, because now basically what you've done is is put everything back on Roger making the decision. And it's like, why do you have to judge it? So I think one of the things, I don't know, y'all probably read, I'm thinking they might go to the arbitrator. Are they going to the arbitrator or are they going to go to him making it? My sense is that they might go to the arbitrator because then that puts them in a different place on it. And that could end at 12 games. So I love your thing about accountability. But this is back to our conversation we're going to have later on about chasing the ghost. The NFL, everybody set this system up, and you have a judge, so you have somebody who has a history of reviewing cases, from what I'm understanding, and this is what comes out of it. And so there's a lot of stuff happening here. When I heard 6 games, I was like, what? I mean, I think um what's my guy down in Atlanta got what? Did he get like 6 of them? What did
He
he
got a
get?
whole season. Cal
He got
Ripken
a
got a
whole
whole.
season. See, but this is what we got to talk about in sports is when they think you messing with their money, they gonna give you a year, right? Look at the bar in all these leagues for what's perceived as gambling, even though they're making a lot of money on that. So when you messing with these people's money, they're giving you a year. When it's kind of isolated in the way they think they can navigate, they start to play like that. Doesn't those two don't even make any sense, right? So this is an interesting thing, but that's the process that they've been going through. And my sense, because I haven't tracked it the rest of the day, is that when I heard that, I said he's gonna send it to the arbitrator because that pushes it a little farther away from Roger, because those are the options he had. Now, if he decided to make the call, that's gonna be something. But my sense is he's gonna go to the arbitrator. Did you want to weigh in at all on this, Darnell?
Yeah, I think the arbitrator is definitely the smart move for him. If
Yeah,
I'm Roger
yeah,
Goodell, I want to stay as far away from this thing as possible.
yeah,
I want to. I think that's the like you said, that's their whole reason why they brought the judge in to begin with.
yeah.
But as far as the ruling, um, I was right with you. I was stunned, and in my opinion, I believe that Deshaun Watson should have got a year. Like
Yeah.
in my opinion, the best way that the league could have handled this was to say, we're not sure. Say we're not sure if it's because with this Deshaun Watson case, like
Yeah.
they've just been more and more and more cases coming out. So we
And,
don't know if
and
it's the end of this. So this year, come back next year. Let's try again.
and the
I
judge,
thought that would be the way.
this is the part I want to hit the point you just said. The judge, this is the interesting thing. NFL only brought of all those cases, NFL only brought 5.
And that's the problem. He
They
had
didn't. They
like
didn't bring.
over
They
two
didn't bring
four
more.
two
They
times.
just brought 5. Why did they limit themselves?
I, b- I believe he reached settlements with like
Yeah, I'll
20
say
some 20 or so women.
were these the unsettled cases that they
Were they
brought?
the unsettled? Because I didn't hear the. I didn't hear because unsettled or not, that's not part of their jurisdiction. They're trying to figure out whether or not you right. That has nothing to do with. They're not confined by that. They have information about all those cases. It has in their organization. I don't think they're confined by that. I think they thought that these were the 5 cases that probably gave example of all the other ones. But I think just only bringing 5. Why not bring 10? Like the judge would look at, but yeah, the judge looked at 5 cases out of the 24. You just never know how many numbers coming out the gate. So we're right. This is something we're going to have to watch, and it fits into our like
They
like
said he reached out to like 66 women, right? They say he
yeah,
reached out
I
to
mean, yeah. When
66
the article it's like 6 to 6. Like, look, y'all. Every athlete, I mean, you from everybody who been on the air, I've been watching on TV who are athletes. It's like in my career, I only have 3. I only trust certain people with my body. In my career, I've only had 2. Like people are picky. Like LeBron ain't going to see 66 people for that reason. Like, and so it's what you're saying is, and this gets back to your point, Isaiah. There's a deeper issue that we all know is there, and it's not being dealt with. And uh, as the employer, you have a responsibility to deal with that, and that's the part that's missing here. And we'll see where they go. And the thing about it, it was suspension with no fine. So if we have Hammer here, who's the resident lawyer and attorney, he might say there's something in those um, uh, what they call them, the hearings that happened early on. I might get my
Discovery.
when they were doing the discovery. Remember where they went into those hearings and came away with no push for conviction. So Hammer might be saying, "Is there something?" But I'm like, when it's that many people, I don't know. I mean, you got to figure. But she came away with no fine, and that's the part that killed me. Was like looking at everybody's complaint about how the contract was set up. You're gonna give him 6 games, and you're not gonna have a fine. Like I
Mm,
don't know. I find that hard to believe, right? Like if she was said 6 games and we finding you, I know there's probably stipulations about the within the collective bargaining, but we gonna find you the max that we can find you. Like that wouldn't have been great, but it would have gave you something. But they did 6 games and no fine, other than well, you probably gonna lose for those game checks. So yeah, we got to look at this a little bit more, man. It's for all the things you said, Isaiah. Thank you for bringing it. You don't got us spurred up here. You got us warmed up, brother. You got us warmed up. We gonna keep it real up in here because I got my good folks out here gonna keep me real. Like Devon, y'all gonna let that slip? We ain't letting it slip. We watching. So we gonna say something about it. All right, on my back page, man, there's so much I want to put on my back page. I'm gonna say what's on my back page. It was just good for me last week to see Tiafimo. We've talked a little bit about it, but it was just good to watch an interview. I'm looking forward to having him fight, and it just makes me. There's a piece of boxing you miss when you don't have somebody like that there, but and with all the struggles he's had, like one of the things that is so that we find out about comedians and boxers, just to struggle, the process people have to go through that we don't see that's behind the scenes. And for him, what became like something that came out very public. But I'm just about Grace. It's just good to see him continue to be on the journey. I'm just looking forward to him getting back in the ring and fighting because there's something. I think boxing is better when he's fighting. It just adds a whole nother level to it. And so there's a lot of things that have been on my mind, but it warmed my heart because I was a big fan and it still is. I still am a big fan. And I'm a big fan because I can see him fighting through the struggle, both with his dad and to see his dad get emotional. Like his dad is sometimes always out front, but to see that genuine love and cry and fear about where his son was tells you a little bit more about where they are, just their struggle and their. So that part, it warmed my heart. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight coming up. So that's what was on my back page. I like those are stories, those rebounding stories of comebacks, um, like really get to me as well. All right, gentlemen, I'm trying to get my life together here. I'm on the ones and twos on this one. So we're gonna get into a little bit into the booth, and we're gonna get this concept I call affectionately chasing the ghost. And it came out of just work I've done in my other part of my life, where I find that sometimes as people we get consumed with things we have no control over, but they consume us, and we think we control it. And organizations like our sports leagues do that stuff all the time, and sometimes it's a public relations thing because they want to tell you they're doing something um, and they really care about it when they really don't. So sometimes that's that, and we kind of buy into it. Um, but we've had a lot of tampering cases coming up. Tampering, like it's the history of sports. Sports was built on tampering, and it's like now we got these big things about tampering. We got the Dolphins and Stephen Ross, who's just got caught tampering because they were trying to talk to Tom Brady and Peyton, the coach, and trying to set the game up as if these things don't happen all the time. And maybe it's just he got caught, but this whole concept of tampering, or we got the Sixers, and people are upset because they think there's tampering, and there was an agreement by Harden before agreeing to the deal. And everybody you talk to is in the media who works on this said that's just the way these things are happening. Like because somebody tweets 2 minutes after free agency opens, and it's like, you know, why are you trying to control something you can't control? And so there are many examples of this. And with these two, they love boxing. We got a lot of examples in boxing. So I want to spend a little bit of time in that. And I'm going to start out with just this context of tampering in NFL. Like you know, what's happening with the Dolphins and things like that. When you heard that, and also we got, um, uh, you know, it's rippling into some of the other issues that the Dolphins are having that are pretty interesting. But first of all, what was your reaction when you heard what was happening with the Dolphins? I'll start with you, Darnell. In terms of uh, what was being said about what they did and the penalty. They got hit with some draft picks. Ross is what out what? Is it 2 weeks? I don't know. 6 weeks? I don't know what. You know,
Yeah,
he on
yeah, I think
vacation.
but he's the owner. Like
He's the owner,
it's not,
right?
him being suspended doesn't really do much for the
No,
team.
he gonna watch the game from the yacht. Like that's what I'm talking about. That's like all you saying to him is he's just gonna be in more comfortable dwellings, right? Go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you gotta say.
Yeah, so when I first saw this ruling coming down, I saw this on Twitter, and I was misguided. Like when I first saw the Dolphins were being punished, and Stephen Ross was being suspended, and the draft picks were being confiscated, I thought they were talking about the corruption with them attempting to throw games last year, and I was like, wait a minute. So we're not gonna punish them for throwing games, but we're gonna punish them for tampering with Tom Brady. So yeah, yeah, so pretty much that was my first takeaway with it. But as far as them tampering, I don't really. That's not something that I necessarily care about, to be honest with you, because it's something that is understood that it happens in football, happens in basketball, happens in baseball. Every team sports where transactions are made, tampering exists. So that's not something that I necessarily put a lot of stake into.
I mean, you hitting it right on. It's like these cats are all in every place. It's like I remember Draymond getting fined on Inside. Remember he was on when he was on
Yeah,
yeah. I mean he was y'all asked him on there because he was promoting. He really was supporting the league by being there, one of your top players. He was doing his job in that space because you asked him to do his job, and then you're gonna find him. And he gonna represent you well after the league. But we gonna find there's not even a rhyme or reason to how they even adjudicate this stuff. All right, I know. My man Isaiah was looking like, okay, what's the OG even got us out here talking about? How you doing? Talk the
Now,
tampering, man. Is
now
it
the,
much to do about nothing?
yeah, I really think so. Like whenever I see tampering, oh, somebody got busted for tampering, I'm like, oh, what's the issue? What is the big deal about it? And I'm looking into it, and it's really just teams communicating with players or whatnot. And I thought that was a normal part of sports, really. And even with the recent situation with in the NBA too, with Jalen Brunson, the Knicks are being investigated for tampering with Jalen Brunson and that signing. But I heard that there was, he actually has family on the Knicks roster. So how would he not talk to his family? So I just feel like they're just trying to make it seem like they're trying to enforce something. Because even with the punishments that come, we see that they aren't very legitimate punishments. I feel, in my opinion, I don't know why that it's enforced, or what it could prevent if tampering were to cease or whatnot. But I don't think uh, if the Knicks were going to talk to him sooner or later, that would have changed the outcome of the trade anyway. So but like you're saying, what are we actually trying to do here with this? What is the goal when we're trying to say, okay, that's tampering, you can't do that?
So with the Jalen Brunson thing with the Knicks, it actually goes a little deeper than that. The Knicks at the beginning of this offseason hired Jalen Brunson's dad as an assistant coach. So pretty much to try to lure him to sign with them in free agency.
Yeah, but he couldn't talk to his dad. Like, I just feel
Yeah,
like
but
like I said, but if they hired him, he would have been on the team anyway, just from that alone. Like That
And this is
that
not
They're,
like
was
hi- they're
that.
hiring him as a package deal. There's like the
Yeah, but hiring him is not like what they do in college football, where they hire your high school coach. He's a legitimate NBA assistant. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like it's not like they like he was coaching high school basketball. And now you're gonna be coaching.
well,
You're gonna
yes,
be
he
assistant
was.
secretary for.
Wait, 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 wait,
He,
wait, wait,
he,
wait,
I
wait,
know he
wait, wait.
was, but he's
He
got
was. He
experience.
was coaching Camden High School where DJ
But
Wagner.
he has experience, doesn't he, as an NBA coach?
He does, but he was just coaching high school.
But I'm saying, but he has experience as an NBA assistant coach. I think, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he played. Yeah, he played in the NBA, and he
He
was
played
a
in the NBA, and I think he has some
assistant coach.
experience in the NBA. It wasn't like it was a far fetched, like he don't know what he's doing on the bench. Like like we see all the time in college football, right? How many cats? Like you, like okay, when he coaching high school, boom, he's coming in, and the players come as a package. Do you? I feel like it's. This is where I'm saying, like, you can't chase the ghost because I think this is an issue where the universe and karma writes itself. Right now, let's think about the Dolphins. When have their decisions actually paid off? Like we spending all this. Like I know Ross is a Michigan alum and everything else. Got all the money. He's been successful. But he couldn't figure out that he needed to keep the coach and got rid of the coach that who can actually coach, who actually beat Belichick twice. Like that's the guy we dealing with. Like at this point, I'm like, why are we wasting energy with a cat who hasn't figured out how to win yet anyway, right? And it doesn't pay off in the way. Now, the more interesting one is the Sixers because this was kind of interesting because James rolled out the whole "I'm doing it for the city." I'm taking it, but he get you to 1-2 move, right? So they saying, look, you taking it short term, you got the option in the second league in the second year, so we can always come back and get your money on the back end, right? And you take us under the cap, so we don't get penalized. So now we got these two exemptions we can use to get House and PJ Tucker,
The
both of whom you
Philadelphia
play with, huh?
Rockets. I
Oh,
said the Philadelphia Rockets.
you know what I'm saying? The Philadelphia. So that was interesting. Now that has a little bit more layers in it. Do you think that's worth getting at, or do you think founds the same space as what y'all were talking about before? I'll go with you, Isaiah. That's a little different one.
To me, it still feels all like fair game to me. I feel
Mm.
like especially in a professional league, like players are gonna go where they want to go anyway. I think regardless of what type of communication is happening, most of the time the players, it's a players league, especially in the NBA. So I don't even like I was saying, I don't know if any of those like pre talks or the tampering and all that would have really made that much of a difference. I mean, I do know that there's different layers and it allowed them to do some things, but I don't know if it's so much of an issue that we have to be penalizing people for it. I don't really know. I just feel like it's just something that adds another layer of confusion.
So Darnell, I'm going to ask you. This is an interesting thing. This is where I'm saying chase the ghost is almost like when you chase it stuff like this, it becomes a smoke screen. So NBA gonna have a collective bargaining, right? And they're gonna try and bring maybe some policies around this issue. But it's their own owners who are the ones activating this. It's their own VPs of presidents of basketball operations who are doing this. If you're the players, do you try to blow this up? Like, why are you? It's like showing your DMs, right? Why are y'all gonna talk to me? You might drop all your DMs. Like, look, here's so and so texting me, before the deadline, but yet y'all trying to bring the pot. Like, how do you handle this as the players when you're the ones who know all this is coming back, but this might be leveraged against you, right? As a way, as a ploy to try to get more control of players. How would you respond?
I think that's a possibility. I mean, they try to give you leeway in one area just so they can take some away in another area. You know what I'm saying? Going into the next CBA, I think that's something that's possible. But going back to the Sixers thing, I don't think I don't think that's a I don't think the Sixers issue is a problem at all because James Harden, as soon as he opts out, he's a free agent as well. And if they're all free agents, they can all say, we're going to the Sixers, and I'm going to make this work financially. I don't think that's. I think that should be perfectly legal.
So I just kind of warmed y'all up for the cesspool called boxing, as famously said by my man James Toney when talking about the WBC and all those. What we be crooks, whatever he kind of framed it. But boxing's got its own set. And when I talk about Chasing the Ghost, boy, boxing's like the boogeyman. Boxing's like Nightmare on Elm Street. Boxing got so many layers. And this is why I say I brought this up because nobody chases the ghost more than Darnell Kirkland Jr. when it comes to boxing. The boxing purist, he is somebody that his sport drives him crazy. It's a love-hate relationship. He wants all kinds of what other controls. People make decisions. So I'm going to talk to you as someone. This is almost like a therapy session. I didn't know you was going to get. You didn't know you was going to set up for this. Nobody chases the ghost more than Darnell Kirkland Jr. when it comes to boxing. Like if he could put his arms around it, like when we think about chasing the ghost in boxing and all the things you can't control, Darnell, what do you say?
I say there's some things that are worth fighting for, and there's some things like we talk about chasing ghosts. Like I think this goes back to the whole conversation that we've had for this whole show. Is some things are worth fighting for, and some things aren't. Just like I believe tampering necessarily isn't something that's worth fighting for, but the but bringing justice to against for offenders like Deshaun Watson and others of that nature, I believe that is something that is worth fighting for. So I think it all depends on the issue that is at hand. And when it comes to the sport of boxing, and I think the biggest issue here is the rankings. I think the ranking systems is something that is worth fighting for because you need to have a system where guys can, you know, find themselves matriculating through the rankings by way of merit, you know what I'm saying, instead of just who is backed by the most powerful promoter. I don't. I think that does the sport a disservice by having the sport kind of ran the way it is now, and that's something I'm going to stand by.
But that is that is the thing that I see changing. It's going to be, I mean, that is like the primary thing of chasing the ghost because it gets away from it takes everybody away from the way in which they're making money, right? And
Oh,
so
that's
so
that's the next
what's the
point.
mechanism for change?
And that just goes at another point. I don't know if we're going to talk about Jake Paul today, but
Yes.
do you know if Jake Paul would have won that fight with Hakeem Rockman? That the fight's been canceled now, but if he had won that fight, he was going to get ranked by the WBC. The
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
first fight that he fought against a real boxer was going to get him ranked in the top 15 of WBC.
And and
Of
to
the,
me that just hurts the legitimacy of boxing itself. Like you're really just it's entertainment. It's not really about like the competition anymore. That's why I feel like the difference between boxing and MMA, especially when you talk about facing ghosts. Boxing is gonna pick and choose which things they're gonna fight for. I guess you could talk about like with Canelo Alvarez and his drug allegations or whatever. And you can see that they end up moving the goalposts, so that is
Yes.
that he's able to you know I guess beat these little these tests. But you see other guys, they get caught with a test and they're out of here. So it's just they can choose which things they want to fight for, and that's the problem. And it's because it's an entertainment business. It's not about the best guys. It's not about who's best fighting the best. Unfortunately, it's not. It's about the biggest money draw. What's gonna entertained. You know, unfortunately, everyone just wants to be entertained, um, and they're going to do anything in their power to preserve that. Whether it's turning a blind eye at a drug test, or promoting a certain fighter over another fighter, ranking them higher over another fighter. All types of things that boxing does to that's not fair. It's definitely not fair. A lot of it is about your connection, and you're the most powerful, um, and the most powerful, they just want the money and entertainment. Um, but I think boxing, in terms of chasing ghosts, could learn a little bit from the MMA, UFC, especially like I feel like with when it comes to the best fighting the best. I feel that part of the reason that a lot of these big fights don't happen is because of what the boxing is trying to preserve in their entertainment value. Whereas but is that really what we're entertained by? Whereas MMA, you get higher levels of competition, and that is more legitimate. Whereas you see it in boxing, Jake Paul could have been ranked. So uh, I just feel that boxing, they have to help their own self right now. Like I said, they're picking and choosing which things they want to fight for. But some, like Darnell says, some things are worth fighting for, and there's definitely a lot of things in boxing that still needs to be fought for sure.
Well, one of the things I really appreciate, and I want to thank both of y'all for going on this journey with me, because I kind of set this thing up, and both of y'all are like, okay, where are we going with this? But one of the things I really appreciate, in some ways, y'all brought the solutions to the table in ways that I often respond to this chasing the ghost thing, is that really be clear about the things you care about. And then the next step with it is, what are the tangible ways? One of the things that I think Oprah says, I love the saying, is like, what's your next best step? Like, what are the things, if you really care about it, what are the tangible steps to actually dealing with that? Right. And what it seems like is that we always overreach in our response to things rather than tangible steps. Sometimes small steps can be very powerful. It's kind of like in boxing, it's like cutting off the ring, right? So tangible steps mean, don't just follow it around, don't follow the person around the ring. That's chasing the ghost versus cutting it off and taking control of it. Start to control the movement, right? And I love the fact that y'all said, like, y'all in boxing, y'all have identified a couple things. Y'all say, okay, these things are worth fighting for. Then the question becomes, okay, what's a tangible step if you were to address that issue,
Yeah,
right? So you said, go ahead.
I got an answer to that. When these things are found out, they need to be enforced. Like right now, the WBA is under investigation by the ABC, the Alliance of Box Commissions, um, for an alleged bribery as far as paying to get a certain fighter ranked, and they're saying that if the WBA is found guilty of this, they will not be allowed to put on fights in America.
Mm,
And if actions like that are made, I believe you will see some real change as far as the way these guys are ranked. I believe, and an intangible. I know you said give a tangible
yeah,
reason,
yeah,
but an intangible reason, I mean, an intangible solution to this would be the keepers of the culture, as you like to say, they have to keep the culture. They have to
that's right.
they have to actually keep the culture. And we've had the last couple months, you have guys that like Floyd Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins, and Oscar De La Hoya all argue against, you know, the belts. Like the belts should matter if we really want to preserve the integrity of the sport. You have a guy like Devin Haney that has all the belts, and then you have a guy like Floyd say, you and Shakur, y'all do whatever you want on that side, but leave Tank alone or whatever. You should leave Tank alone right now or whatever. And then you have a guy like Bernard Hopkins that says, yeah, Devin Haney has all the belts, but do the belts fit his pants? And then he was like, okay, he has all the belts, but is he gonna bring the most money from my fighter, and which is Ryan Garcia? And he's saying that Tank is the fight for us. Um, So that's what I'm saying. The keepers of the culture have to be keepers of the culture. The integrity has to be kept by the people that Let's face it; these guys have pull within the fan bases of the sport of boxing. Like they have large influence. So I think they really have to hold the line if their integrity of the sport is to be kept.
I love that point, man. I think that's a really good point on this because it was something I was thinking that I really that part of this the solution comes in to who the key components of the folks keeping um, the culture and maintaining what the expectation is. You know, there's this book on called Sports Matters, and they talk about the matrix of sports. And part of the key is that those elements, whether it's the owners, it's the media, it's the people on the field, it's the fans. There are components of it that if you want to have that change, have to be activated, right? And so when you said that, I think that is a really important piece. That's a very important component. That what makes Hopkins and them work is that they're part of the ownership group, and they were combatants, so they're in two matrices. They're part of the people driving the strategy, and they were in the ring, so they can be very powerful players because they are bringing two powerful concepts together. And if they were to do that, things would change, right? Because it'd be harder for other cats to because to tell you the truth, if all three of them got on the same page about where to drive the sport is going there, and they could find out what the financial model is, right? But the other thing is there's going to be some external stuff as the UFC grows and builds it on this thing of real competition, and that real money start they find ways to better distribute that money. That's going to put some pressure on boxing too, because they're going to be a competitor in the space that's competing for eyeballs and for those TV contracts
Boxing
and some of
needs
that other stuff. We said,
they need some competition.
yep,
Even though they got so much competition amongst themselves, I think they need
yep,
an outside
yep,
source. To
yep.
really, I think the UFC they're getting it more and more. They're getting it better and better. I think.
Well, thank y'all both for coming on this ride with me on this. It was great. Well, we gonna hit with the grand finale with some parting words from each of us. Um, I'll start with I don't know who wants to go first. I'll go with you, Isaiah. Come back over you to Darnell, and then I'll close us out. Any parting words you got for the people?
Man, parting words. Now I feel like I'm on the spot, but
Okay.
I really, I did like that conversation about chasing the goats. I really do think that you see that happening in all of the sports world, and like we said, especially boxing. And unfortunately, boxing is just so. I don't think it's going to fix itself. But where you see like the NBA and NFL, there's areas that are worth fighting for, and I think with enough help, that things can change. But we don't know where things are going and if they'll go in the right direction or not. But there are certain things about sports that we just can't change. That's just the reality of it. We're not going to be able to get the perfect picture every time. But I think as long as we're always, trying to constantly evolve, always trying to constantly improve, and on those weak points where we're just, uh, just not cutting off the ring, where we're just, just doing intangible things. I feel that that's when we'll finally get a change, in sports. But I do feel that there are some things that aren't going to change, and you just have to control the things that you can.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, brother. Darnell, any final thoughts or final words, parting words?
Yeah, I was watching the Danny Garcia versus Jose Benavidez card on Saturday, and this was pretty much the framework for the chasing ghost boxing conversation we had. But yeah, but that to say this, there is some serious corruption that is visible. You watch these cards because yeah, if anybody has watched the Danny Garcia versus Benavidez fight, Danny Garcia won that by a landslide. I mean, he was boxing Jose's ears off. Jose was just in the center ring, dancing, doing taunts and stuff, but he wasn't being effective. And at the end, one of the judges scored the fight a draw, and nobody that watched the fight can justify that this fight was a draw. And if you go to the undercard, you have Gary Antoine Russell. And if anybody's listened to the show for any period of time, they'll know I'm a big Gary Antoine Russell fan. But this is the second fight in a row that he's had a questionable, to say the least, stoppage. I mean, this stoppage, um, like he got up within the time. He stepped to him. His legs weren't shaking at all, and he just stopped the fight. And Ratchet was being he was very competitive in this fight. I mean, this is definitely a fight that was up in the air, a fight that could be won by both sides. And honestly, I believe that Antoine would have gotten a stoppage eventually, but because I think he was going to start breaking him down. But Ratchet deserved to go out the way that going out in the right in a fair and balanced way. But I think this is the second fight this has happened in a row with him. So it just kind of reeks of something's going on. I think something might be going on there because the post off fight. If anybody remembers the post off fight in the 12th round, there's like 20 seconds left in the round, and Postal haven't gone down yet. Gary, he's pouring it on, but like I said, Postal didn't go down. He was still fighting back, and I think he's another guy that hasn't been stopped in his career. He's been in there with guys like Terrence Crawford and guys of that level. So I think he deserved to be able to go out on his feet. But yeah, that being said, I know I'm being a little long-winded here, but that being said, there are some things that are still worth fighting for, and I believe that the sport of boxing is something that is worth fighting for, and I think it's time for us to clean up the sport, and so we have something that we can all be proud of.
All right. It was good to talk about this issue, chasing the ghost, and I love the way that, um, we're trying to really talk about how, what can you narrow down to the things that really matter, and to tap into, like I said, this book I was reading about sports matters. I think one of the key groups in the power matrix, and I think is even has more power than we think, are the combatants and the spectators, and some degrees of power that those folks have are different in various sports, but collectively they can do a lot, and particularly, they can only make money if you watch it. If people are, don't support fights that don't meet the demand, and folks aren't making money, then they got to make the fight you want. And so somehow we have to galvanize folks. We have to figure out who's going to be the keeper of it in order for us to shake folks up. That bottom line is always a factor. And so if you want to get change, get focused on the things that really matter, galvanize, use your Twitter for other than saying something crazy. Use it to be able to move the movement. Use your ability to galvanize. Um, we all are sports fans and we enjoy this. We just want to make sure we got the best product we can, and we want to focus on the things that really move and make our sports better. So until next time, this is D. Wills from my man Isaiah and Darnell Kirkland Jr. We'll see you on the other side.